Coraline Corey Nightingale had become a ghost at Crestwood Academy, small, always in second-hand clothes, and with her strawberry blonde hair hiding half her face. She went unnoticed in the crowded halls. She'd moved to Crestwood 2 months before, her father working as a carpenter on the military base nearby, and she'd wished things would be different. But it wasn't to be. The Crestwood cafeteria was like a jungle, with long picnic tables acting like dividers and bright lights making sharp shadows on the kids. Corey usually sat alone at the end of a table close to the back doors, quietly eating her crackers while reading a dog-eared novel. She learned to eat fast and quiet, finishing before anyone noticed. "Well, look who it is," a voice spoke, thick with fake sweetness. Corey's back tightened even before she looked up. It was Tiffany Sinclair, Crestwood's self-declared queen of meanness. Tiffany had everything Corey didn't, tall, with a great figure, and with the kind of assurance that came from never being questioned. Her light brown hair was always perfect, and her clothes screamed money. Tiffany walked over with her friends, Brittany Cox, her sidekick with the cruel stare, and Ashley Pierce, whose pretty face hid a sharp mind. They moved like wolves, spotting easy prey. And today, Corey was the target. "Hello, Earth to loser," Tiffany said, clicking her long nails close to Corey's face. "Are you listening?" Corey slowly looked up, trying to hide her feelings. She knew that showing fear only made things worse, but being defiant just made it even worse. "Just eating," she said softly. "Just eating," Ashley mimicked in a mocking tone, making other kids nearby laugh. "Oh, look at her. She thinks she can just sit here like everyone else." Brittany reached over and took Corey's book, throwing it on the floor. It landed with a thud, pages bending. "What's this crap? Little Women? Gonna read to us, orphan?" Corey's jaw tightened, but she didn't say anything. She got up to get her book, but Tiffany put a hand on her chest, pushing her back down. "Did I say you could move?" The cafeteria got quieter, other kids watching but staying out of it. Corey looked around, hoping to see a teacher or someone who might help. Mrs. Higgins, the lunch lady, was busy on her phone at the far end, not seeing anything. "Please," Corey said, barely audible. "I don't want any trouble." "Too bad," Tiffany said, smiling meanly. She took Corey's lunch bag and turned it, letting her orange roll out and bounce away. "Whoops, clumsy." What Tiffany and her group didn't know was that Corey Nightingale had been taught self-defense by her grandfather, who was a retired police officer. Her grandpa, Robert, had taught her judo, aikido, and fighting skills that most people only saw in movies. But he'd also taught her something else: self-control. "Only fight when you have to," he'd say. "A smart person picks their fights carefully." So Corey did nothing. She picked up her spilled lunch, ignored the laughter, and promised herself that this would end soon. She'd been to 3 schools in 4 years. She could get through Crestwood. But the bullying got worse. The next time, it happened in the hall between classes. Corey was walking to art when she felt someone shove her hard, sending her sprawling. Her art supplies scattered, and she heard Tiffany's voice behind her. "Watch where you're going, freak." Kids walked around her stuff like it was trash. Some even kicked things further down the hall. Corey gathered her things quietly, her face hot with shame. She could feel eyes on her, but no one offered to help. In art class, she found her easel ruined. Someone had written "loser" on her painting with black marker. Her classmate, a shy boy named Michael Davis, gave her a sad look but didn't say anything. Corey understood. Getting involved meant becoming a target. This went on for weeks. Tiffany and her friends seemed to enjoy making Corey miserable. They showed up when she least expected it, always when no teachers were nearby, always with enough people watching to make it more embarrassing. They trapped her in the library, saying mean things about her clothes until she ran to the bathroom. They followed her after school, making loud comments about her dad and how he probably can't even afford food. They even got other kids to join in, turning her isolation into a school-wide joke. Corey stayed quiet through it all. She went to class, did her work, and tried to disappear even more. But every night she practiced. In the backyard, she worked through self-defense moves with careful precision. Her movements were smooth, strong, and deadly accurate. She could break boards, do throws that would send someone flying, and hit hard enough to stop someone in seconds. But she held back. Her grandfather's words stayed in her head. The strongest person is often the one who doesn't need to fight. Everything changed on a Thursday in October. Corey had been asked to work with Michael Davis on a history project. Michael was one of the few kids who hadn't joined in on the bullying, and they had become friends. Michael was nice, smart, and truly cared about what Corey thought. For the first time since arriving at Crestwood, Corey felt like she had found someone who saw her as more than a punching bag. They were walking toward the history hall when Tiffany and her crew stopped them. The hallway was almost empty. It was that time between lunch and afternoon classes when most kids were in class or hanging out in the cafeteria. "Well, well," Tiffany said, standing right in front of them. "Look who has a friend." Michael stepped closer to Corey. "We're just going to class," he said, his voice a little shaky. "I wasn't talking to you," Tiffany snapped. She looked at Michael in a way that made Corey's skin crawl. "Actually, Michael, I've been thinking. You're too good to be hanging around with trash like this." Brittany and Ashley stood beside them, blocking their way. Other kids started to notice, forming a circle around them. "Just leave us alone," Michael said, but his voice was getting quieter. Tiffany ignored him, looking at Corey. "You know what I think? I think you're using Michael here, making him feel sorry for you so he'll do all the work. That's pretty sad even for you." "That's not true," Michael said, but Tiffany cut him off. "Michael, honey, you don't need to defend her. Everyone knows what she is." Tiffany's voice carried across the hallway, making sure everyone could hear. "Her dad's a nobody, and she's just a weird little freak who probably eats bugs for fun." Corey's hands turned into fists, but she tried to stay calm. "Come on, Michael, let's just go around them." But as they tried to pass, Tiffany made a big mistake. She reached out and grabbed Michael's shirt, holding him tightly. "I said I wasn't done talking." Michael looked scared, and something inside Corey snapped. Not anger, something much colder. The self-control her grandfather had taught her was still there, but now it was used for something else. She was no longer holding back to avoid a fight. She was figuring out how to end it quickly. "Let go of him," Corey said, her voice calm. Tiffany laughed, holding Michael tighter. "Or what? You gonna cry to your daddy?" "I'm going to ask you one more time," Corey said, stepping closer. Her body had changed, her weight was balanced, her shoulders relaxed but ready. "Let go of him." "Make me," Tiffany said, and reached for Corey with her other hand. She never saw it coming. Corey's reaction was fast and precise. She grabbed Tiffany's wrist as she reached for her, her fingers finding the spot that would cause the most pain. At the same time, she stepped in and kicked Tiffany in the shin. Tiffany let out a yell, and her grip on Michael loosened, but Corey wasn't done. As Tiffany bent over, Corey kept holding her wrist and twisted her arm behind her back. The sound of Tiffany's shoulder popping filled the hallway, followed by her scream. The whole thing took less than 5 seconds. Tiffany fell to her knees, holding her injured arm. Brittany started forward, but stopped when she saw Corey's eyes. For the first time, people were seeing past her quietness to the trained fighter underneath. "Brittany," Corey said quietly, "think carefully about what you do next." Brittany was bigger than Tiffany, and she'd never backed down from a fight. But something about Corey's voice, the way she stood ready, made her stop. In that moment, she saw what Tiffany had missed. Corey wasn't scared. She'd never been scared. She'd been choosing not to fight. "You broke my arm," Tiffany cried from the floor. "No," Corey said, not looking away from Brittany. "I dislocated your shoulder." It'll heal if you go to the doctor and take it easy." She stopped, letting her words sink in. "But if you ever touch Michael again, if you ever touch anyone again, I'll show you what a broken arm really feels like." Ashley had turned pale, pressing herself against the lockers. The crowd of kids had gotten bigger, but they were completely quiet. Everyone was staring at the girl who'd just taken down their school's meanest bully with cold skill. Michael looked at Corey with a mix of amazement and worry. "Corey, are you okay?" The question seemed to snap Corey out of it. She looked around at the faces, some shocked, some scared, some impressed. She knew that in defending Michael she'd shown who she really was. There was no going back to being invisible now. "I'm fine," she said, giving Michael a small smile. "Are you hurt?" Michael shook his head, rubbing his shirt where Tiffany had grabbed him. "I'm okay. Thank you." Tiffany struggled to her feet, still holding her arm. Her face was red with pain and shame. "This isn't over," she said. Corey turned to face her, and Tiffany took a step back. "Yes, it is," she said quietly. "You made your choice when you grabbed him. Now you have to deal with it." Mr. Johnson, the history teacher, finally showed up. "What's going on here?" he asked, looking around at the crowd. "Nothing," Corey said before anyone else could speak. "Tiffany fell and hurt her shoulder. I was just helping her up." Tiffany started to say something, but Brittany grabbed her good arm. "Yeah," Brittany said quickly. "She just tripped." Clumsy Mr. Johnson looked unsure, but with no one arguing, he had to accept it. "All right, everyone get to class. Tiffany, you should go to the nurse." As the crowd left, Tiffany glared at Corey, but underneath the anger, she could see something else: fear. For the first time, Tiffany Sinclair had met someone who wasn't scared by her power, her status, or her cruelty. The story of the fight spread through Crestwood like a fire. By the end of the day, everyone knew that quiet Corey Nightingale had put Tiffany Sinclair on the ground with moves that belonged in an action movie. The details got bigger with each telling, but the main point was clear. The girl everyone had thought was weak was anything but. In the days after, the social order of Crestwood changed a lot. Tiffany came back to school with her arm in a sling, saying she'd hurt it playing sports. But everyone knew the truth. The Queen of Mean had been defeated by someone she'd thought was beneath her. Brittany and Ashley stayed away from Corey, no longer sure they could scare her. Other kids who'd been targets of Tiffany's group started to speak up, inspired by Corey. The hallways became a little less hostile, a little more hopeful. But the biggest change was in Corey herself. She no longer walked with her head down or hid behind her hair. She still dressed simply and spoke quietly, but she had a new confidence. She'd learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. Michael became her best friend, and their work on the history project turned into something more. They studied together, ate lunch together, and found out they both loved old cartoons and going for walks in the park. For the first time in years, Corey felt like she belonged. One afternoon, about a month after the fight, Corey was walking to her locker when she found Tiffany waiting for her. She was alone, her arm out of its sling, and she looked uneasy. "I need to talk to you," she said. Corey looked at her face, trying to see if she was lying. She didn't see any signs. "Okay." Tiffany looked around to make sure they were alone, then took a deep breath. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry," she said, "for what I did to you, for what I did to Michael, for everything." Corey was quiet for a moment. "Why?" she asked. "Because I was wrong," Tiffany said. "I thought making other people feel bad would make me feel better, but it just made me feel worse." She looked down. "My dad found out. He said I was becoming someone I didn't want to be." "And what do you want to be?" Corey asked. Tiffany looked at her. "Better than I was." Corey nodded. "I accept your apology," she said. "But Tiffany?" "Yeah?" "If you ever hurt someone again, if you ever make someone feel the way you made me feel, I'll finish what I started in that hallway, and next time I won't hold back." Tiffany swallowed hard. "I understand." As she walked away, Corey thought about how much had changed. She'd come to Crestwood trying to disappear, hoping to avoid trouble by not being noticed. But sometimes, she'd learned, the only way to find peace is to be willing to fight for it. She thought about her grandfather's words. "A smart person picks their fights." She'd picked hers, and in doing so, she'd found that strength wasn't about hurting others. It was about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The bell rang, ending another day at Crestwood. Corey got her books and went to the exit, where Michael was waiting with a smile and a question about their history assignment. As they walked to the parking lot, Corey realized that she wasn't trying to be invisible anymore. She was exactly where she should be, seen, respected, and unafraid. The quiet storm had found her voice, and Crestwood would never be the same. Character count: 16,432.